Hey, Eddie. I was listening the other day. You had ZAKK on, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are. He seems to be one of the only ones in rock music that has played with Ozzy or has dealt with Sharon that doesn't have an issue with them. Everybody else in the rock music has horror stories, but he seems to be like an extra kid to them. I'm just curious as to why you think that is. Do you think it's because he wasn't involved in the financial aspect of it as much as some other people were? Or?
Yeah, I do. And you're right, James. I mean, he doesn't have that history. He has a long history with Ozzy. I think it's a few things. I don't know if listen, people kind of forget there were those little hiccups. Like when he was let go of the band from the band and they brought in Gus G, whatever that was 4 or 5 years ago. That was a weird thing. That was the first time you sensed a little tension there. That was the first time that ZAKK was kind of, you could see clearly aggravated at the way that was handled. And at the time it was a volatile situation and it was a little touchy for a bit, but that lasted like a couple days. And then all of a sudden he went back into, mom and dad. And as he calls them and, he calls her mom and she can do whatever she wants. I think the deal is with this, and I don't know of his financial arrangements as a writer and what he gets paid and all that has worked out. I think by the time he got to the band, hopefully there were enough people that knew there was enough of a history around him that they made sure his business was buttoned up. So maybe he's okay in that area. I don't know. But I do know this. ZAKK is a heart and soul guy that is extremely passionate, is extremely loyal to people. And he looks at Ozzy and Sharon as people that have given him an opportunity that no matter that in his mind, to this day, people would never know who ZAKK Wylde was if it wasn't for the opportunity Ozzy gave him and Sharon. And I think because of that, even if there are issues or even if there are things that rub him the wrong way, he's just going to deal with it. He's not going to say it. He's always going to defer to that because they are the people that put him on the map.
Cool. Oh, and I was looking at the M3 stuff the other day. I was checking it out. I'm thinking about going down for it. And I had a laugh at a comment on there that said, if you guys are looking for a new host, Ricky Rackman's looking for work.
Well, as far as I know, James, I've hosted M3 every year, and I do. I know Ricky. I like Ricky. I mean, if Ricky gets involved, thank you, James. That's up to Ricky. There's been more than just me as the host of that, so that's up to Ricky and the promoters if there was something to come of that. But Ricky's a guy with a great history in this business, and if he wanted to get involved, I'd welcome it. It's up to it has nothing to do with me. But back to the Ozzy thing, and ZAKK thing, I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't know how many people know this. I kind of made some Jersey references yesterday when ZAKK was on because ZAKK is from New Jersey. I knew and saw ZAKK Wylde play before he was ZAKK Wylde. Ozzy gave him that name. ZAKK's real name is Jeff Weiland. Now he's legally changed it to ZAKK Wylde, but he was Jeff Weiland. And he was a guy playing on the Jersey club scene in a band called Xyrus. I saw him. They used to play around the clubs here in Jersey. And it was Ozzy when ZAKK was discovered through a friend of mine named Dave Feld, another friend of mine, photographer Mark Weiss. There's a long story with that, but they brought ZAKK to Ozzy's attention, and Ozzy comes in, rebrands him ZAKK Wylde, and makes the guy a star. And I think in ZAKK's mind that he probably wouldn't have what he has today and be who he is today. And you could argue maybe he's right. If it wasn't for Ozzy saving him, he might still be Jeff playing in the clubs of Jersey. So because of that, he probably will never, ever change how he feels or never kind of bite the hand that he felt set him up. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned Black Label Society. I mean, you may not have a hit song, but you've built an incredible following with this band. I saw it packed house in Atlanta the other day when I was there. But if you thought, but what do you think, ZAKK, of your catalog under Black Label Society, of all the songs you have recorded and written? What is the biggest one? Like, what are the one or two that get the biggest reaction, the closest to a hit that you came?
The biggest one would be the most money that we paid out in payola and paid vacations and hookers. And that would be the one that would be the biggest song. And it was the most money that I had raised on my paper route that I could donate towards the payola. It always seems to work.
But which one is it?
It's like blue jeans and a T-shirt. Payola never goes out of fashion. It just, people enjoy it. And the paid vacations, you know, it's like rather nice. It's like, wow, I really like this Black Label album. I've never heard of them before, but I enjoy this trip to the Bahamas as well with my wife.
Vacation, money, hookers, blow, and then all of a sudden you got #1 record.
Yeah, it's like, wow, who knew? And I thought it was all the practice that I did.
Right. So you're not paying the right people the right amount of money is what you're saying.
No, I'm not, because we still play in the basement, and, you know, there's only 8 people showing up. So, I mean, obviously, something's wrong.
Black Label Society coming to Studio One very soon, everybody. There's an old school Jersey reference for you.
Yeah, there's no problem, because we still play high school keg parties. I mean, the video for Room of Nightmares, somebody was just like, oh, wow, that's like Zach. That's like a really funny video. Whose idea was it to play at a children's party? I go, that's no one's idea. That's us actually playing at an 11-year-old's birthday party. I go, the music business isn't what it is. It used to be. I go, the whole thing is you get a gig, you take it. $100 is still $100.
Well, but seriously, if there were 2 or 3 songs that you feel at this point in your career are the songs that really are the biggest quote unquote hits for you, I mean, what is it? Is it Stillborn? Is it? I mean, what were the biggest, the closest you came to a big radio hit? What would it be? What's the ones that go down the biggest live? Suicide Messiah?
No, Stairway, Free Bird, and Hotel California. They really like those. And then, like, for the encore, when we hit them with White Christmas, it just brings everyone together.
I'm not going to get an answer on this. I guess the answer is the mashup that starts the show.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you started with that, man.
Tell me about making this record.
Hey, I just wanted to come from a critical point. You mentioned today that you can be critical. I'm a fan of ZAKK WYLDE, and you do a great job. I'm not critical of you on this. But this is the 3rd or 4th interview. He's done the same kind of shtick, and it's getting close to the David Lee Roth thing where you go down a rabbit hole and you have to be this character of yourself. I love Zach. But it was a little annoying at times. You did a great job, and I'm not saying you need to call him out on it. You pick and choose your battles. You do a great job, and you're always honest, but you're in a position. I'm just wondering if you've noticed that, and can you nudge these guys on that stuff, or you just let them do their thing? Because it was, it's the same joke. It's the Conor McGregor thing is the 4th time I've heard it, and I was just wondering, critical of a guy I really respect and like, just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I understand. First of all, I'd never heard the Conor McGregor thing again. Most of the stuff Zach threw at me yesterday, I'd never heard before. But I understand what you're saying, that it can be frustrating when you want to hear from a guy and you can't get a straight, honest answer from them. Some people love that. There were a lot of people that loved that Zach was like that, and they were positive about it. But I completely understand what you're saying, John. And if you heard during the interview, there were more than one time that I kept going back to what I asked him and said, no, come on. Give me the straight answer. Like when I asked him about the identifiable, because he kept saying he has no hits. I'm like, well, if you had a hit, what's the hit? Is it Stillborn? Is it Fire It Up? Is it Suicide Messiah? What would you say are the big songs in your career? And he wouldn't even commit to giving an answer on the Super Bowl. So he was just, I think a lot of it happens too with me because I've known him for so long. And I think he just likes to bust balls. And I can tell you, that's not something he turns on and puts on for radio. That's not something he does just for effect. That, if you hang out with him, that's most of the time, that's how he is. Thank you, John, for the call. There have been times, however, where I have had opportunities where I have gotten him serious, both privately and publicly sometimes, where he will hone in and he will be a little bit serious. But he's just a guy that likes to mix it up and wants to bust balls a little bit and have fun, and he doesn't take.
The Chicago Open Air Festival, I just heard over the weekend that ZAKK WYLDE was going to be playing with Ozzy Osbourne. Is he officially back in the band, or is he just doing, like, guest appearances?
No, he's back in the band. That was announced on Friday with an official press release. So Gus G is out. Zach is back in for Ozzy solo tour dates.
And Ozzy wants to do some more recording. So is any more recording going to be done?
Well, the press release also mentioned an album in 2018.
Okay.
So it would seem that there will be recording and there will be tour dates, and Zach is also doing this band Zach Sabbath. Yeah, and they're playing at Rocklahoma, which I'll be hosting in a few weeks, doing an all Sabbath tribute. So it's interesting what Zach has done, Sean, because he's picked up the Sabbath mantle now with Sabbath being done, and now he finds himself back in Ozzy. I was saying this earlier today on my volume show. To me, I never saw Ozzy with Gus G, but it never, to me, seemed like Gus was fully entrenched in that band. I know he did a studio record. I know he did some touring, but what I mean by that is that even when Gus was in that band, you know, when Ozzy would do these different shows, he'd always have different guitar players. Zakk would come and go a little bit. Slash did some stuff with them. Tom Morello did some stuff. It just never seemed like Gus was fully entrenched there. I could be wrong on that. It just felt that way to me. And now he finds himself out of the band and Zakk back in. I'm happy for Zakk. He's a friend, and I wish him well. And I think what this is really about, quite honestly, is that Sabbath is done. How much more could be left for Ozzy solo? Maybe one more album and tour. So why not take a swing at that with your best bat and your best team that made some of your biggest records? So re-enter Zakk Wylde. It's really not all that surprising to me that that's happened.